it looks like we are live for yet another live stream. Thank you so much for hanging out. This is pretty much the final episode of this series that I've been doing, the portrait of the Latin actress Paola Rey. So, as you can see, we worked in building up this particular portrait using the Extreme Patriot Arrow customized by myself, and also using my patented Airbrush India inks, and just bringing that together using the color line paper by Canson. So I'm very excited about it, and so I'm just glad to share it with you in the culmination of this technique, which I did invent years ago when I was starting to paint in Airbrush. I was like, there has to be a better way for monochromatic painting, because acrylic just didn't do it. It would trap the pencil lines. It would be unforgiving, very difficult to erase, and it just had a very sterile feel to it. But with this, I feel with the Airbrush India ink, it gives a lot of life, and kind of actually definitely has more of a fine art feeling, and that's what I was after from the very beginning. So so I'm glad that you are here. Thank you so much for hanging out. So we have Paul all the way from Indiana. How are you today? And we have Colette all the way from Wisconsin. Great to see you. I am so glad you are here. Thank you so much for spending time with me on this Wednesday evening. So that is really fantastic. And how's the weather out there in Indiana, Paul? Oh, yes, so I'm excited about doing this next step. Let me put my fan on. And it's a slow start today. Not too many people here. I'm not sure why. There might be another live stream out there or what have you. That's cool. I'm really happy for those who do come and hang out. That means the world to me. So it's not the quantity, it's always the quantity. It's not the quantity, it's always the quality. Right, everybody? That's what they say. So I'm really happy Colette and Paul is here tonight. Thank you so much. Oh, look at that, 41 degrees. Hey, Mr. Dwayne, how are you? Great to see you. How's everything today? All the way from Central California. How's the weather there? And Colette, how's the weather over there in Wisconsin? I heard it's getting a little chilly over there. Am I right? So that's interesting. So what I'm going to do is we're going to load up the Extreme Patriot Arrow. Hey Michael, how are you? First time watching. What a great honor to have you here. So Michael, tell me, where are you from? I always like to know where my viewers are from, because you all are very important to me. I'm going to get my hose. And we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to put the light mixture in, which is significantly darker than the detail mixture. And we're going to start going to town, darkening things up. So glad you're here, Michael. Always a pleasure. And Michael, are you an airbrush artist? And I'm just taking my my light mixture right here. And we're going to go ahead and load that into Customized Extreme Patriot Arrow. And I'm going to do that straight up, you know, not on the rocks. And put that in my airbrush as so. Oh, so Michael is from Houston, Texas. Currently living in Winsboro, Texas. Oh, welcome. Very cool. We have a lot of great Texas people, regulars here, so you'll fit right in. Great state of Texas, so I'm excited about that. I have my ink flinger's glove, and we're going to put that on there. So that is great. And so now I'm going to get a little more light on the subject. And so what I want to do, let me see if I can get the picture of Paola here so you all can see her. And we'll just bring Paola all the way up. There she is, so you can see what I'm working on. Put her right there. Great. Okay. Hey, Honey is here. Honey Rivera. Great to see you. Thank you so much for hanging out. All the way from Long Island, New York. Always a pleasure. You did a great drawing. A portrait of a woman. Came out really nice there, Honey. So you did a wonderful job. It's great to see people advance in their art technique, and Honey's really doing that. So very good showing. Really nice. So now I need my glasses, and usually they're there. Let's see. If you were glasses, where would you be? Let's see. Okay, so they're not there. Let's see where they are. Okay, great. I did find them, so that's always good. And Michael says he's been practicing drawing for a few years, and he's going to begin his airbrush journey in a few days, waiting for a few more supplies. That's exciting. This is a great place to be for that. A lot of great artists here to talk and go over technique, and I think it'll really help you, Mike. Any questions, you let me know. Mr. Fred Stewart, how are you? Great to see you. So glad you're here. And Fred's all the way from the UK, so what an honor. Thank you so much. And Tone, all the way from Jacksonville, Florida. Actually, from New York, now living in Jacksonville. Good to see you. Hey, we have Fingerprint Customs. So, Fingerprint Customs, I think this is the first time you're here. I just want to say thank you for joining us. Fingerprint Customs, where are you from? I always like to know where my subscribers are from. Marshall, always great to see you. Can you refresh me as to where you're from? That would be great. So very exciting that we have some new people today. I'm always so excited and welcoming when people, Iowa, the great state of Iowa, that is so fantastic. Go Hawkeyes, right? Oh, Hawaii, Marshall, that is great. Is that the 50th state in the Union? That is fantastic. And Paul says FPC. Now, where's that, Paul? FPC. And so that's really cool. So love the fact that we have new people. We have the regulars. We got always a really good mix of exciting, talented, beautiful people. So thank you so much for hanging out. So before I ever airbrush, you know, I always want to go ahead and test. So I'm going to have this off to the side, do a quick test, make sure my airbrush is working perfectly. One of the things I love about my Extreme Patriot Arrow customized by itself, I used to have 2 custom microns, and once I customized this, I drew it away. I do approximately 4 or 5 paintings a month, so I need it to work perfectly, and to actually sell my microns because I have this says a lot. And Dave the Bug Gregory, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming to hang out. Dave, thank you for the $20 super chat. I really appreciate that, sir. What an honor. And Dave, can you remind me where you're from? Sometimes it takes me a little time, a little repetition for it to get into my brain, so I know. Dave, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Hey, how's it going, Mr. Ken Cleveland? Always a pleasure from Indiana. Thank you so much for hanging out. So you're very welcome. So I sent out the online course material for Mr. Ken, the Extreme Patriot Arrow, the inks, the sepia mixtures. It's just so fantastic to share that with him, and I'm sending him some gifts. And so thank you so much for giving me the honor to teach you and for the chance to make that Extreme Patriot arrow for you. I really appreciate that. And oh, that's right, Fort Sill, Oklahoma. So cool. Great state of Oklahoma. Have some good friends in Oklahoma. Mr. John Diekman, how are you today? Great to see you. And once again, Dave, thank you so much for that super chat sticker. That is just amazing. Means a lot to me. It just lets me know that I'm doing the right thing with this channel, helping out great people, painting great people, and so thank you so much for that. And so now my airbrush is working really well. Oh, so glad to hear life is good, Dave, and really appreciate that. You are really amazing, sir. Okay, so I have my ink flinger's glove, and I have my Extreme Patriot arrow, the light mixture. Let's just make sure I'm in focus, and what I do is I just blow it up. And we're going to darken a little bit, then we're going to come in with the white pastel. There we go. And I can blow it up one more time, and then I could really get this focus. How's the sound and picture quality, everybody? Pretty good? So now I'm just going to, with the light mixture, just very slowly start darkening a little bit, bringing that together. Fred says he used the new gun this week and it's fantastic. Yes, thank you, Fred. Fred purchased the customized Extreme Patriot arrow from me, and he uses his old ink from 18 months back. But wanted to try it again, and even with the new gun, the old inks work. Thank you so much. That's so exciting. I have such a pleasure making those airbrush for everybody, because when I make the airbrush, it does not leave my studio until it works as good or better than my airbrush. If I have any kind of inkling that it's not perfect, it doesn't leave my studio. So I don't know anyone who sells airbrush who tests it as much as I do. I really test it. It just has to be, like I said, it has to be an airbrush that's going to do exactly what you want to do. And that's what I'm really, really excited about when I do make those airbrushes for customers or other artists. It's like making an airbrush for my friend. So you are my friend, so I have to make sure that it's going to make you have more fun airbrushing. So if I just did it real quick, didn't check the air valve and didn't check the nozzle and the needle and all those things, then I'm not being a friend. Rick, how you doing all the way from Canada? So glad you're here. Thank you so much for hanging out. Oh, thank you so much. Colette says she wants to know about the online course. That is actually pinned on the top of the discussion here. You can see that. And so thank you so much for asking. And I'll also put that in the description. And I'll talk about it later as well. So here is my online course once again. Thank you so much. And Fred says the airbrush, the gun would perform great, but after a few minutes of fine detail, he had to loosen the needle and twist it to get good performance again. Must be the old inks. Yes, so you definitely, and I did send you a fresh set of inks. I think the inks that you purchased from me were like 18 months old. So usually I don't have any complaints about the inks, but sometimes they could dry on the inside or what have you. Most people actually finish the inks well before the 18 months. But yeah, that airbrush, when it leaves my studio, is like really like high-end, quality assurance. So thank you so much for that, Fred. I appreciate it. Oh, great. So Fred's going to try the new inks. Yeah, the new inks actually contain a detail mixture, which is the brand new one that I use probably in 60% of the painting is a detail mix, so that's cool. And you see I'm just darkening right now, not doing anything too big, because in the beginning of any painting session you just want to get warmed up like a relief picture. Let's see, here's Paola. Okay. Alright, let's work on her eyelashes here. And let me show you some of that detail capability that we have. And just make me a little smaller. There we go. Okay. And so now we're just going to work on a little cast shadow right here. And we'll darken the outer rim of her iris. And a little more cast shadow. Okay, just darkening up her eyelashes on the lower eyelid, and let's see if we can put some more clarity in her eyebrow. And I have the light mixture, which is pretty dark in comparison to the detail mixture, and I really only do that towards the end of the painting. And so I'm going to wait for that to dry, because it's just a little bit of a mistake right there. And we'll just increase the shadow of the retrorbicularis oculi fat right there. And oh, Colette says she's doing the course. Thank you so much. I'm so happy you're taking the course. Fred says the brush is tip-top. Thank you, Fred. I appreciate that. And so Fred said he mirror polished the needle, and he's excited to try that tomorrow. Very cool. And oh, looking forward to that. And Fred also says that he's definitely going to take my class. That's amazing. So that would be an honor for me, Fred. Definitely. And Air Todd, how you doing? Great to see you. So you're cleaning a few airbrushes. That's always a good thing. Got to keep those airbrushes working, you know, in high level, right? So that's important. So I'm glad you're doing that. And we're just going to darken her iris here, her pupil. And we'll work on some of these little eyelashes here. Make sure you get the direction of the eyelashes. What I like to do is do a dot and then do a dagger. Dot and dagger are the great ways to do eyelashes, as you can see. Oh, one is skipping when you're painting. Could be a number of things, but most likely it's a little bit of a paint that's in your nozzle. So you want to do a deep cleaning with that, definitely. So check on the low-hanging fruit. Go ahead and check the needle. Make sure there's no tip, no paint on the needle. Take that out. Check it. Check your nozzle. After doing that, see if that fixes the problem. So you always want to do the easy things first, because 9 out of 10 times it's going to be that. So that's always important to do what's easiest first. The easy fix. You don't want to go ahead and like really deep cleaning if the airbrush didn't need it, right? So check those easy things first, sir. Okay. And we have a little bit of cast shadow over here. And then right here, the zygomatic bone called the zygoma right over here. So I'm just going to make sure that I emphasize that, right? That's really important. And of course, doing the shadow of the retroabicularis oculi fat. And let's see here. Okay. So it's going to let this dry a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start with a little bit of the white pastel. So let me get that ready. It's just going to be a few moments. Just have to locate the correct supplies. Let's see. Oh, I have a treat for you. Here's a painting I did at 19 years old. I'm going to zoom in. There's an oil painting I did at the National Academy School of Fine Art when I was 19. It's kind of hard to see. But as you can see, that was when I was in art school. This actually won an award, this painting. And it was really, it was really great to go to the National Academy School of Fine Arts. So I was a oil painter well before I ever touched airbrush, and also pastels and graphite, acrylic, watercolor, you name it. But I studied 6 years in oils, so very, very, very cool to see that picture. And Dave says it was about 10 months for you. Wow. A move in surgery, just finished your studio in the new house and starting to paint again. I love that you're painting again. That's really exciting. So I'm so glad. So definitely happy about that. So, just go ahead and pace yourself. Don't get upset if you don't do it every day. It just takes a while, just like any other muscle. You gotta work those muscles again and get to the point when you're able to actually start working every day with more regularity. So definitely, just like going back to the gym, the same thing. You have to build up your strength, got to build up those painting muscles, so to speak. So definitely am excited about that. And I'm just going to locate my sandpaper. Let's see if I can find it. Yes, I do have the sandpaper. So that makes me happy. And now I have to locate, of course, my white pastel is with my pastels. Why wouldn't it be, right guys? Let's see. This is not exactly white pastel. That's like a little bit of a yellow, so we don't want that. Let's see. Just doing a quick search. It's always under something, right? That's always the case. And now, I do paint in several media, so a lot of times when I switch from, let's say, oils to pastel to airbrush, things get lost in the interim, casualties, so to speak. So I'm looking for my white pastel. I'm sure it's over here by my pastel set here. Let's see. Not seeing it. Doesn't mean that it's not there, that I'm not seeing it, that's for sure. Worst comes to worst, I'm going to have to go in the other room and get a fresh pastel pencil. And I will be right back. Okay, when I put the white pastel on my portrait, I don't put it straight on usually, so we'll just zoom out. And so what I like to do is actually put the white pastel on a piece of sandpaper And then from there I take a paper stump and then I apply it like a paintbrush onto the surface. So right now we're going to go ahead and work on Paola's nose, and we're going to build up some of the lights here a little bit more, and we create a wonderful highlight, and it creates this amazing depth to your painting, which I love, you know. And oh, you're welcome, Dave. And so very great conversation going on out there. Thank you so much, and we're always here, Dave. If you have any questions, you can always email me, and I love to, you know, answer any questions as you are, you know, getting back into the swing of things, where you belong, painting, you know, that's your thing. So I'm excited, love your work. And we're just going to see how I can actually work on her nose and get a little bit more clarity with the highlights. And not only highlights, but the lightest lights in the painting. And I'm going to work on her Cupid's bow here. There we go. No, the Mike Tyson painting that Mr. Fred is doing is really outstanding. Great work. If you ever see on his Facebook page, he shows it, and he's just really, really wonderful. And I believe he did a live stream, right? Is that correct? And now it's thoroughly dry. When I'm doing, like, let's say the iris or something like that, I always want to kind of plow the field first, so I'm going to use an aggressive eraser. And I'm going to start with this eye right here. And what I want to do is just kind of erase a little bit of the ink before I go in. And now I'll just take some of this white pastel, and we'll see if we can apply that. And you can see how this is really gonna bring some life to her eyes. The eyes are the most important part of a portrait painting, at least for me, because it's very important to get that sense of one-on-one interaction. And I'll zoom in and we'll work on the white of her eye, but first we'll do this little secondary light source and put some dimension in that iris. And now we'll come in. Now the white of the eye is interesting because it's not all white. There's cast shadows and everything, so you want to apply that. And that's how you create depth. Oh, fantastic. Always a pleasure. I always love, you know, when really good artists are working like you are, Fred. So very excited to see. And so up here is the retroabicularis oculi fat, so light's going to be hitting that a little bit. So we're just going to move that. Get my ink flinger's glove back on. So just hitting this light. And the great thing is with this, when you put it on there, you can always take your kneaded eraser, and the more you tap it lightly, the more that you can remove, and you can keep exactly the right amount of pastel, which is really great the way it works together. And Dave says, oh, okay, great conversation going on, that's great. Fred says he always starts his paintings with the eye so he can get a feeling. Very cool. A lot of artists do that. And So great. So Mr. Dave is definitely getting it done. So I love to hear that. You know, tenacity. That's what we need. Tenacity. We keep going. You know, regardless. That's the main thing. Is keeping that energy going. I'm just gonna hit that iris there. Now I said that I don't really go in with the white pastel, but for like the lightest lights, like right here, I'm gonna really nail that so you can see it. And so let's go on over to the other eye, and then after this we're gonna see how everything looks when we zoom out. So again, I'm gonna get a aggressive eraser like this guy, and I'm going to plow the field right here, kind of get rid of the ink, setting up for the white pastel to come. Okay, and it's a little bit lighter right here on the side of the pupil. And now I'm ready to come in with that white pastel and lightly bring her to life, like Pygmalion in Galatea. Anyone out there know the story of Pygmalion in Galatea? It's a great story among artists. Wow, Braden, all the way from Edmonton. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. That is amazing. So I just want to say thank you for your support and your friendship, Braden. It's always great to talk to you. And how is that new residence coming? I'm sure you're doing great things. Braden says, "Were you actually finally talking about your achievements when I first came in?" Thank you. I don't know if I want to talk too much about it. You're very gracious to me. I appreciate that, Braden. Thank you. Braden's a good guy. We met at an entrepreneur mastermind group, and so it's really great to talk to someone like himself, and I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for your, for inspiring me and encouraging me. That means so much to me, sir. Thank you. And you know what? I love Canadian people. You guys have always been such a positive influence on my life. I mean, that's why I gotta go to Canada soon and see all you guys. And thank you once again for the inspiration and belief in me and the channel by giving me that super chat sticker. That means so much, sir. And so as you see, I'm just lighting it slowly. Now the light's coming from above, so the eyelashes and the eyebrow, the eyelashes, the eyebrow, and everything's going to cause a cast shadow. And we're just going to lift that up like so. And, thank you. Braden says I'm a positive inspiration. Thank you, sir. That means a lot to me. And that's what I really try and do, is to let people know that we all have great creative ability inside us. We just have to tap into it. And if I can help people do that, good people like yourself and others, then that's what it's all about, you know? Thank you. Spare room in in Edmonton. That is great. Thank you, my friend. Definitely will take you up on that. Thank you. That is so exciting and so gracious. Thank you, sir. Edmonton, I hear, is a great city, and also Braden was talking how there are rivals between cities, Edmonton and Calgary, which is really interesting, and Winnipeg, right? Even that city. Once again, I'm going to do the retroabicularis oculi fat, which is right here, but it's not as bright because this is kind of the shadow side, so we have to make sure we put the lights and darks, but the relative lights and darks, which is so important. And as you can see, just putting an indication, putting some of those lights in the darkness there. Now remember, I went in with the actual pastel pencil for that super powerful light right there, just to really make that pop. And then also there's a little bit light hitting the top part of the lower eyelid. So let's go ahead and see if we can make that happen as well. Fantastic. And now we have this malar fat right below where the orbicularis oculi is. So we're going to make sure that we indicate that. Let's take a look and see how the eye, just by doing that, how much she actually starts to come to life, and she does. So that is always good to see. Now let's continue moving down. And once again, I wanted to basically work on this malar fat. And malar fat in Latin is like cheek fat. And it's a fat compartment, so everyone has it, and some more than others, and it's hereditary, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with weight. And so as you can see, by coming in and defining the malar fat compartment here, we really can get a real sense of depth into Miss Paola here. And see how this comes down here. And then right here this is part of the nasalis muscle and also the upper lateral cartilage. So that's what you're seeing here on the side. But it's not a pure shadow. There's a lot of light bouncing around. And so we're just going to put some light in the shadow of the side plane, which once again has to do with the nasalis muscle coming across, and also in the middle of the nose is the upper lateral cartilage. So knowing that is almost like having a hack into a computer program. You know that it's there, you can look for it, and that's really important. And right now we're going to come over here and we're going to work on an indication of the temporal ridge right over here. And this is where like everything starts coming together, and you can see we're really getting her likeness, and that's really don't happen until the end of the painting. And pretty soon I'm going to make my T. And so right here I was a little overzealous, so I'm just going to tap this with the kneaded eraser. So I still have the shadow of the retroorbicular oculi fat, and we're just going to work a little stronger on that temporal ridge. And what we do on one side, we're going to do on the other side. So I like keeping that idea of bringing things up together. They're not the same by any means, but to bring up the development together, we can see those relationships, value relationships, how things are light and dark on both sides, how the light actually affects it. So we're just going to work on this. I'm going to put more pastel on my sandpaper, right? And bring this over. And let's see here. Okay, so here we have our zygoma here. Pretty much the top part of the zygomatic bone. And just by showing that the light is hitting here a little stronger because it's facing a little more towards the light source, it's going to be a little more powerful. And just rubbing that in lightly, and then once again we're going to be hitting this malar fat compartment. And when you see it, but you look for it, it's really a lot easier to paint. In my online course, I actually go over these fat compartments where you won't see anywhere else. I'm studying plastic surgeons, and also where they have to locate all the fat compartments and the tendons, And that has made a real big difference in my teaching method and in my own portraits. You can see how she really comes to life once we start really getting into the definition of the fat compartments and everything. Wow, Mr. Fred says she looks great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that, sir. And we're just going to just continue creating this depth and how the fat compartments, not only the muscles, because a lot of anatomy books will tell you about the muscles and the bone structure, which are important, but the most superficial, the thing that is showing most, is those fat compartments, and you don't find them in the anatomy books. You only find them in the plastic surgery books. So that's where I am right now in my artistic development. And so when I'm always learning, so when I learn new techniques and everything, I always pass that over to my students and you guys here who are on the live streams. And so now I could actually take this and kind of work on the supraorbital eminences above the eye socket right here. And there's one over here on the light side. So basically it's the structure of her skull. So we're doing skull structure, we're doing muscular structure, and also fat compartment structure. And all together we're going to create a portrait that is at the highest level of observation. And so, you know, when you look at someone, let's say across the street, and you know them, they could be a family member, your wife or your husband, or your brother or sister or good friend, you recognize them. And you don't recognize them for the eyelashes, you recognize them for the skull structure. So knowing the skull structure, like here, that really goes a long way in getting that likeness, because it's like the steel girders to a building. That is the underlying structure and shape of the person. So knowing that is really key. And so if I was to, let's see if I have that skull here, and I'll show you the supraorbital eminence that I'm referring to. Let me bring this up top. Okay, great. So you see above the eye, each of the eye socket is that kind of bump. And those bumps above the eye sockets, that's the supraorbital eminences. And then also on the top part of the forehead, not the top part of the head, you'll have the frontal bone, and there's two bumps on each side, and then you can see the zygomatic bone on each side. So those are things that I look for that really help when working on the portrait. So we're painting a pretty lady, but also we're painting the skull that's underneath, right? So the skull might not be a pretty element of the portrait, but without the not so pretty elements, we can't see the pretty elements. So you have to have that contrast, and that's important. When someone has a portrait, I'm sure they're not intent of me painting their skull, but in reality I am, you know? Because without understanding the skull, I won't understand the muscles, or the skin, or the fat compartments, or the makeup, all that stuff. So you see how that all comes together. Okay, and so now that I did that, let's work on the frontal bone. Remember I told you up here, we only see the part of the top of the forehead, but the frontal bone we have to actually show, and that's the part of the bone. There's two pretty much protuberances on the skull up here, and we want to make sure that we show that by building up the light. And that, again, it just is something that creates more truth in your portrait, and it's something that artists don't do. And if you take my online course, you're definitely going to learn stuff like that, where you won't get anywhere else. Not too many places, that's for sure. I'm going to reload my sandpaper with more pastel. And then at the end of the day, we're going to do some dark accents with the medium mixture. That's going to be fun. We build up this superorbital eminence above the eye socket a little bit. There we go. So now we're getting good structure. And then also, so the nose is pretty much comprised of three parts. The nasal bone, which starts right here, then it gets a little bit wider in the middle. That's called the upper lateral cartilage. And then at the bottom, and that's called the alar cartilage. So three sections, which is really important to have those three sections. Like I said, you know, if you're looking for it, you're going to see it. If you don't know it's there, you're going to miss it. And just by knowing those three sections where they are goes a long way. There we go. And you can see how we can really start bringing some of these details to life. Okay. So we're not going to leave it. We're going to leave it temporarily, but we'll come back to that. There's a little bit of light on the fatty part of the outer nostril here. I'm just going to indicate that. And now her nose is coming forward, which is really important to show depth in a two-dimensional piece of paper. And that's the job of a painter. A realistic painter is to show three dimensions or give the illusion of three dimensions in a form that on a piece of paper that's two dimensions. And Fred says, what's the achievement with learning plastic surgery? What's the achievement of learning plastic surgery? New career, or is it for your art? Definitely for the art. No, I definitely, that's a little squeamish when it comes to that. But the plastic surgeons are the one that knows the face more intimate. And also think about it, plastic surgery has only been around as a discipline for 100 years. So the information that plastic surgeons have, Rembrandt didn't have it. All the French academic painters, right? They didn't have it. So with plastic surgery and the advent of it, we know more about the face than anyone else, and that's super exciting. Sort of gives us that edge, you know, that we're always looking for. You're always looking for the edge, and so, you know, always keep your eyes and nose open to who has the most information. I look at painting the portrait as being a computer hacker. The more information you know, the better you'll get at it, right? The more you know about computers, the more that you'll be able to accent and get the most information. Hey Robert, great to see you. How's everything? Robert is taking the class, and it's so great to see you. Thank you, Robert, all the way from the UK. We got several UK people here today, and Robert says, fantastic painting, the pastel really makes it pop. And he started the course, and he's learning a lot. Thank you. So that means so much. Thank you for that wonderful testimony. Yeah, so the online course, the link is in the description, and it's only $149. Comes with the stencils, the Airbrush India ink, the pastel, the sandpaper, a kneaded eraser. So, and you have me when you're working on the portrait. If you have any questions, I don't leave you out there alone. And I created the online course because I wanted something that had that flavor of a New York City art education that I had when I was young. And so now that's not even possible because the way that everything is set up for workshops, it's impossible to have that intense 8-hour-a-day lessons, but I kind of bring that energy. Dwayne for the $10 super chat sticker. Thank you. I appreciate that, sir. Thank you for your inspiration, and that means a lot. And you know, the fact that you guys come here and spend your Wednesday with me means a great deal, and that's what gives me the strength to keep going. I was so tired today. You know, I teach courses and other things, do my own artwork and the live stream. But seeing you, everybody like Dwayne and Braden, you guys are just so amazing, and Dave, and everyone, Marshall, everybody that comes here, regulars and new, really give me that energy to do this and feel like I'm doing something important. And if nothing else, I can push you all to go into whatever, you know, makes you feel the best as far as your creativity. And if I can inspire that, that's given me so much energy, everybody. And so right now there's this, this is called a jowl fat on the side of her cheek, side of the corner of her mouth. And when you're looking for it, you can see it. When we get older, sometimes the jowl fat starts to sag a little bit, and that's where I learned most about it. So we're just going, and at the corner, that's where you can see this little downward turn right there. Thank you, honey, says she's agreed with Fred. Thank you so much. And so thank you, honey, for all your support and your friendship. I appreciate that. And Fred says, these live streams are great as it brings the airbrush community together. Yes, and the airbrush community is really fantastic. I come from the fine art community, and they're great, but a lot of times they can be really standoffish, and that's, you know, it's natural. But you have to get to know, you got to break the ice a little more with the fine art community. But the airbrush community is always so cool and so much fun to hang out with, and just really very open to share new techniques and everything like that. So I really love the airbrush community for that, definitely. Dwayne says, you're very welcome, Tim. I've been kind of busy tonight, but still listening. Oh, cool. So thank you. As long as I'm in the background, that is great. So thank you for that. And Tone says that's how he learned back in the day. He could watch airbrush artists paint all day. Yes, see, that's the thing. Airbrush artists are always so giving. Now, right here at the chin is something called the mental fat. It's called mental fat because on the bottom of the mandible or the lower jaw is called the mentalis, and that's right under the center line. And on top of that mentalis bone, or the mentalis part of that jaw, there's this kind of golf ball shaped, very round fat compartment. And that's what we're painting now. And it's really cool. And Fred says he learns as much, if not more, watching live streams and hearing tips on the chat as I do actually painting. Yes, it's so cool, you know, there's so much information to be ascertained out there. So I'm glad I can be a part of that and also learn from you all too. So that means a lot. Now, what's interesting about this particular mental fat, it goes around, but you can see there's a line right above the mental fat, and that line is called the orbicularis oris, which is an orbiting muscle that goes around the mouth, hence the word oris. So when you have this round kind of mental fat above the mentalis, you're going to see this line. Always look for that line. It's always going to be there. Sometimes less of evident than others, but it's always there, and that's going to help you get that likeness and that humanity of the actual subject. And let's see, Michael says, newbie here, do you mind me asking what kind of paint you're using? Oh, I'm so glad you're here. And as a newbie, any question is always, always, always welcome, Michael. So never a bad question. So I use these Airbrush India inks that I actually created, and I dilute the inks from detail mixture, light, medium, and dark to simplify the airbrush portrait. They're already diluted, and you can just take these, open them up, drop it in your airbrush, and you're good to go. So definitely go on inkflingers.com, Michael. They're only $20 right now, and so I really highly recommend giving them a go. And that's on inkflingers.com. I'll put that in the description, www.inkflingers.com. It also teaches you the proper dilution for the airbrush. Because a lot of times when people start out, they start out with thick acrylic paint and they don't know how to dilute it. And by not knowing how to dilute it, what happens is it gets clogged and you have tip dry, and you think it's yourself, but it really isn't. It's just that you don't know how to manipulate the paint. With the Airbrush India inks, none of those problems are there. You just set the PSI at 25, leave it there, and you just have fun and go painting, which is really amazing. So once again, these are my mixtures: detail, medium, dark mixture. There's a detail mixture, and you get a full set for $19.99. And almost everyone, if not everyone, once they start using the Airbrush India inks, it really changes the airbrush for them, makes it more fun, and they enjoy it more, and that to me is the biggest payoff. And I sold those inks all over the world: Germany, Australia, South America, North America, everywhere. And people just love them. I don't get returns. I don't get any kind of people not happy with them. It opens up new doors and kind of cuts that learning curve in half, so you don't have as many as the growing pains, which is really important. Oh, so Dwayne says he's really digging the sepia mix. He just played with them so far. Oh, the sepia mix, thank you. On the website, inkflingers.com, I also have a mixture of sepia. And sepia mixtures are fun because it's always good to have a change of pace. And so these are a mixture of acrylic and India ink. And I created the sepia mixture, again, going from light, medium, to dark. So thank you for that, Dwayne. I can't wait to see what you do with them. I know you're going to do great things. Your work is amazing. Fred says he never knew how much we needed dilute until these inks. Exactly. Because when I first came into the airbrush, I was like, maybe I should just dilute it 50-50, but it's more like 90-50, right, in certain instances. And you take that knowledge with your paint, and with any paint you could use water and dilute that. You just have to know when to say when. And the inks really teach you that, and the sepia mixtures, which is really great. So I'm going to, so the light is coming from above, slightly to camera left. There's going to be a buildup of light. Whatever's facing the light is going to get more white. That's one of my Timisms. And I have Timisms in the online course. You can see that. And these little rules that over the years of not only painting in airbrush, but in acrylic and oils and pastel, working from life and doing portraits, there's these principles that really help you, such as too dark too early, too bad too sad. So you always want to work from light to dark and build up your dark slowly. And of course the highlights is different, that comes at the end. So build up your normal lights, go to your midtones, to your darks, and then backtrack to your highlights, which we're working on now. So that creates a really nice sense of depth, but also a pragmatic approach. You don't want to just kind of wing it every time. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, right? So that's important. And oh, cool, Fred says he prefers the ink over Createx illustration. Not even joking, if you could use it all the time. Thank you so much. I mean, I love the illustration colors. Createx is a great company, but I think starting out, you want something like the Airbrush India inks to really kind of help you with all those principles. And you know, Fred's been painting for a while, and so he's very good. So he can see how the Airbrush India inks could make life a lot easier for him in the process. And so you can see, knowing about all these muscles in the face, we can look for those muscles at this stage. So let's see if I could show you some of the muscles. So right here we have a diagram of the face muscles, and we'll just move this up here. Now you can see all these different face muscles. So you see the lips, and below the lips you have, right below the lower lip, you can see what I was talking about, that retrorbicularis oris, and how that straight line goes right above the mental fat, right? So that's very important. And then you see this muscle right here off to the side, the corner of the mouth coming down to the chin. That is the depressor anguli oris. You'll see indications of that superficially. And also this side muscle here called the rissoris, which is on the corners of both mouths, both sides of the mouth, but it's a lateral muscle. So let's see if we can locate any of these muscles. So we also can see that she's very young, and so we don't see any of these muscles, but knowing they're there really helps. But you can see some of the musculature right here. If we had a better photo at the brow of the forehead here in the center, right where the nose enters the middle between the eyes, there are these supercilii muscles here that kind of describe expression and everything. So anatomy is really important, and we just have to continue trying to find the anatomy in our painting. So right here you can see on the corner of the nose, right here, you have that little line coming down, and that's the nasal labial fold. And that is a muscle that comes down here, and it also is, there's a little bit of a fat compartment there, and that's why you see a little bit of this nasal labial fold coming down. And so that helps a lot, and you want to look for that. And there is also different fat compartments that I actually look at diagrams that really help. And let's see. Oh, and Fred says he's colorblind, so painting everything in black and white. So these inks are great for you. Yes, and you can do this as a black and white underpainting and go over it with color. So that's something to think about. You can do that in pastel, airbrush, and you can do that in oil paint. So it's a great underpainting technique with the airbrush and the inks. I did a test and I did oil painting over the inks, and it works perfectly. I've done acrylic over the inks, no problem, watercolor, you name it. This is a wonderful underpainting if you're going to work in color. If you're going to work on any surface, whether it be on a fender, you can even use these inks for that, and it's a lot easier to spray. And Mr. Antod says now he can watch me while the airbrushes are soaking. So cool. I'm glad you're working on that. Mr. Brad, how are you? Always a pleasure. Great to see you, sir. All the way from Manitoba, Canada. Canada in the house. We got 3 Canadians, Rick, Braden, and Brad. So great to see you. So that is cool. As you can see here, we're working on some of these smaller forms, and so we can see how this rissoris, no, I don't, this is the angular right here, the depressor angular coming over here. We just see a little bit of it, and right here not so much, and right off to the side we have a little bit of reflected light, which is affecting this jowl fat at the corner of her mouth here. And you can see I may get overzealous and make this a little more contrast. So you want to make sure that we only paint what we see. And so it's a really important. Now the dark over here on the corner of her mouth's a little strong. So I'm going to take an aggressive eraser but not be aggressive. And I'm just going to lighten the contrast of her teeth and the dark, and kind of softens her expression nicely. There we go. Make sure that we make her as beautiful as she is. And so right over here we did that. There's a little bit lighter just underneath the nostril here. But you can see that on the light side there's more light. So remember, what's facing the light gets more white. That's a Timism. And let's see, Fred says, what fluid do you soak the airbrush in? Good question. Yeah, what are you using, my friend, to soak your airbrush? Great question from Fred. Michael says, the Createx illustrations are what I have to start with. I've never used them or the two airbrushes either, as I have been sitting on the airbrushes for about 4 years while trying to learn to draw. Actually, I want you to jump right into the airbrush. And so I'll put in my email address so you can shoot me an email if you have any questions, and I'll be glad to answer anything. I highly recommend my online course, and because it comes with stencils and all the information and really takes you step by step on your first project, and you'll be surprised on what you can do. And that's the main thing. Starting out like yourself, you need someone to just kind of give you a guide, and and then you can go from there. But trying to do it on your own without, I can understand how you could be sitting on it for 4 years, but I say let's go and let's do this. 2023, I want you to do some, I want you to enjoy those airbrushes and start creating work that you only dreamed that you can do. So I would love to help you with that. I have a mentorship program, and these live streams are a great resource, and always come to these live streams. We love hearing from you, Michael, and I think we can take those 4 years and make them a memory, and now you're just using your airbrushes, having fun, getting excited. That's what's important. Oh, the pleasure is all mine. If anything I can do to help. Dwayne says, hope you pulled any of the O-rings. Oh, okay. So yes, great information from Dwayne. You want to make sure that you don't damage the O-rings. So very, very good. And so thanks for your input on that, Mr. Dwayne and Fred and everything. Fred says he can't draw, but he feels he can airbrush. You'll be shocked how quick you can learn airbrush. That's great information, Fred. With the right advice, you'll be on to a winner. That's great. And so, yes, so as Fred says, so working with your airbrush, you are going to become better draftsman or draftsperson. So don't worry about that. The drawing will happen. Your drawing ability will happen. But definitely enjoy that airbrush. That's what it's all about. The best thing is do it and use your supplies, and then you have a reason to go out and get more supplies. What's wrong with that? That's pretty exciting. And right here, we're going to pull down. Now we're going to ask ourselves, what muscle is this coming down? So you see the zygomatic arches here, and then there's the space between the zygomatic bone and the masseter or jawbone. And we're going to bring this down, and you can see that it kind of connects here. Now, is this a bony structure, or is it part of the muscles or fat compartment? So let's take real quick look and see. So this is coming down right here. I would have to say that there's a muscle right here going to the corner of the mouth this might be what the, but no, I don't think it's that. So if we look at the skull, let's look at her skull. Definitely, you see how this zygomatic bone comes down to the maxilla, and how this sort of, you have this depression. So that's basically what's happening here. So this space in between the mandible and the maxilla, or where the inside of the cheek is, that's causing this space in the zygomatic bone. So that's why we're seeing this dark right along here. So it's not muscular, it's more of a bony structural kind of causation. Okay, so now we did that, and we have the jowl fat, and that comes out just a little bit here. So we're just going to make it turn towards the light just a little bit more. And remember, we have the right below the nose and above the mouth, it's a lot lighter on this side because this is the light side, and it gets darker on this side. So we're creating that sense of space, and that she's a three-dimensional form, and we have to turn the forms. And Michael, if you go to my live streams, you'll learn all this because I talk about it every week. And before you know it, the Timisms will become second nature to you, and you'll be doing paintings that are just going to blow your mind. And as far as the airbrush, it really has to do with control, and you can learn control. So that's not anything that you should feel intimidated by in any sense. So definitely that's good news. And so that's really cool. And Airtod says he pulled the O-ring off the front of the clips. Dwayne says you should also pull the one up for the trigger. And so that's great information going on there. So glad to hear it. Thank you for sharing that, Dwayne. And so now we're going down the center line, right? Right here where the nasal bone starts outside of the nasal eminence on the skull. It's light facing most, so we're going to really kind of get a little stronger buildup of light there. And now we're going to work on her lips, and you don't want to be too heavy-handed with the highlights on the lips. I like kind of the fine art approach, kind of not go into every little line, because the portrait isn't really about her lips. The lips are really important. They are a supporting actor, but they're not everything. So we just have to make sure we keep everything in its place as far as importance. And now I'm just going to indicate some of the highlights, the light facing areas of her bottom lip. That's really going to bring things together. I'm going to zoom in so we can see that a bit more clearly. Yes. And we want to get the direction of the highlights, which is important. And some of the highlights are fatter, and some are smaller, and the distances are varied. And that's how you create an organic shape, is you don't want it to be equidistant or the same size. In nature, that rarely happens. So always, you're always painting nature, so always keep that in mind when we're working, especially at this later stage of the portrait, which is so crucial. And notice that the light's coming from left to right, and you can see how on the light side everything is brighter, even these highlights. So as we go to the other side, her mouth and her lips are rounded around the teeth. So as we come here, we're still going to see highlights, but they're going to be weaker because they're not facing the light. They're not getting as much energy from the light source as the light side of these lips, of the texture of her lips. And now we can see, we can kind of shape that with the kneaded eraser. And then on the bottom of this lip here, there's a lot of translucency in the lip, so I'm actually going to create some of that translucency. And it creates more of a transparent feeling of the lips, so that's important. So I might have been better if I was to, let's say, make her bottom lip a little bit bigger, but we're so far ahead of this, you gotta pretty much take your losses at this stage. And then the next painting, you just make it about that. So there's always going to be something lacking in your portrait, and our job is to learn from it and then make whatever we want to improve with this portrait, make that an element of importance in my next painting. So that way you have a real pragmatic learning, right? You basically, very linear. Each painting you learn more by looking at what is the weakness of your last painting and trying to correct that in your next painting. But remember, done is always better than perfect, right guys? So do the work. Don't worry, don't think about it. Just go ahead and work. Do more paintings, you're gonna get better, you're gonna have more information, you're gonna know the airbrush better. It's just gonna help you in so many ways. So now that I worked on the lips, and I do have the pastel, and I'm just gonna hit some of those more light facing areas of the lip. You wanna create that feeling that there are certain parts of the lip that are really facing that light really strongly. I can take my kneaded eraser and I can kind of carve out some of the darks here. Okay. Now if we zoom out, we can see if those lips look better. Perfect. Now you can see the lips look a little wet because that's the way they are. And so very happy with that. And let's do this little area of her earring. I was thinking about the whole time. So I have this as a point, and what I'm going to do, let's zoom in so you can see. We have a chance to really do something really specular and beautiful. And you know, you see Vermeer does it. I'm a big fan of Johannes Vermeer. And it's really specular. You don't want to do that line coming down. You want to kind of show just like a real, like just these little areas that are just hitting that light and then coming down, and it's really going to translate. And you don't want to do that like super strong throughout. You want some areas getting less light, some getting a little bit more. And also, while we're here, let's put some really nice light on her earlobe. Right there. And a little bit over here. And then just a tiny, tiny bit of some light there. So now when we zoom out, let's see how that looks. Perfect. See how just a little bit, it's not bringing too much attention to her in that area, but it's a supporting actor. And that's how we have to look at it. And Michael says, are you painting on some type of paper or prepped canvas? Yes, so the paper is Colorline paper by Canson. It's amazing. It's 140. So you want to get the 184 pound or 300 GSM because it's nice and thick. It's kind of like cardstock, and so it accepts the ink and it doesn't buckle or warp. So that's really good. So definitely the Colorline paper by Canson is really the way to go. Oh, Fred says he's got to go. 3:45. Fred, always a pleasure, and thank you so much for joining us. It's such an honor, and I look forward to hearing how some of your new things that you're doing with the polishing of the needle. And I hope to talk to you soon, my friend. Thank you. And Dwayne says you definitely don't need to deep clean very often. Very true. As long as you, and great point, Dwayne, as long as you are um, cleaning after every use, right? You don't want to leave your airbrush. You want to make sure that you keep it clean. Just like anything else, if you're oil painting, you want to keep your paintbrushes clean. If you're driving a car, you want to make sure that you keep your engine clean and keep the oil clean. So, you know, you take care of your airbrushes, they'll take care of you. And as Mr. Dwayne said, if you're properly maintaining your airbrush and keeping it clean, then you won't have to deep clean for maybe once a year. So very good point. And so, yes. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go turn my kettle on. I'm going to make some black tea with lime. I will be right back. Talks amongst yourselves, guys. And we're going to the home stretch. So we're getting to the end of this portrait. Just letting the tea brew a little bit just to get it nice flavor. I'll be right there, guys. So my personal trick on this, everybody, is that I like to go ahead and squeeze a whole lime and put a lime wedge in my tea, and it just comes out really fantastic. And Ken says, are you painting on the 8 by 10 inch paper right now? Yes, definitely. So it's 8.5 by 11. And Ken, what I did for you, I sent that package with the 2 drawings for your course, but I also gave you a test, not a test, but a 8.5 by 11 blank piece of color line paper, so you can experiment with that. So I hope that helps. And Ken says you have the compressor at 25 psi, but do you adjust it down very often using the airbrushes? Yes, I find I do that a lot. So let's say I'm working on a portrait and I'm doing a tight detail and I don't want to get spidering. Then I may just choke down on my uh, Extreme Patriot Arrow and it just get these really fine adjustments. I also, if you see here on the Extreme Patriot Arrow for that, is you can see that there is a spring that I put in on the Extreme Patriot Arrow, and that spring actually helps to create even finer adjustments. So that's one of the important things that my Extreme Patriot Arrow customized by myself does, because that comes into play. You know, you might want to lower that PSI like maybe 2 PSI, and you can do that with the spring on the pack valve. So painting a portrait very often is a lot of micro adjustments. So and and like you see, I do small paintings. You know, sometimes my head on my figures are like 3 inches, and I can get like incredible detail because of that pack valve, Ken. So that helps a lot. Do you think you take it down to around PSI? Sometimes 10 if I need to. But the great thing with the pack valve, and you can do that with an Iwata, great airbrush company, they have the Mac valve that's built in. And so, you know, it's great to be able to make those adjustments, but set your compressor at 25 psi. Set it and forget it. You won't need to touch it if you're working with the inks. So 25 is really good rule of thumb for me. So I really like the 25 psi, and you'll like it too once you get used to that. You'll become like an airbrush whisperer, Ken. You'll start like you'll see like these like kind of little sound that it makes, and you're gonna be like, uh-oh, something's up, and you'll just have that sense. And so the more you work, and that's why I say the airbrush is something that you'll get better with as you work on it more. But as you're doing portraits, you're going to, you know, as Michael was saying, he doesn't draw, but you will learn to draw just by doing it, just by painting in airbrush. You'll become a better draftsman. It's all connected. Painting and drawing are one and the same. And I've been doing this forever, so you can't have one without the other. So, you know, if you're doing airbrush painting, you're going to become better at drawing. Someone takes my online course, I teach you guys how to do digital, and how digital art can help your airbrushing, which helps your drawing and your drawing. And so it's all connected. And you'll be surprised, Michael, how much fun something that you might have shied away from, and now you're like, I can do this, and that's a great feeling. And Dwayne says he was going to say drop down to around 8 at times. Definitely, you know, I can see that. And Dwayne does some really tight, beautiful detail, so he's coming from a place of knowledge. So that's really important to hear that from Dwayne. Thank you for that, sir. Oh, that tea is amazing. Man, I make good tea. I think it's in my DNA, you know, I'm Irish, so you're Irish and the English, we make the best tea. But yeah, I love tea. I don't drink as much of it, you know. The coffee, right? It's big in the States here. But when I make a cup of tea, I convert people to be tea drinkers. I really do. They always say when they come over my house and have a cup of tea, it's like, oh my God, that's a real nice cup of tea, you know? Irish people, we basically have tea in our baby bottle. I'm not exaggerating. We actually have tea in our baby bottle when we're little, so it's part of our culture. And you see how that's kind of coming together, right? We're slowly bringing things together. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to take out the brush, right? This is something different, you know. Everything is fair in love and war, and everything's fair in portrait painting, whatever tool you need to get you to where you have to be is fair. So I'm going to take some of my light mixture and I'm going to put it in this beautiful cup here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like a dry brush technique. And what this allows you to do is allows you to do really beautiful tight details. But like I said, with the dry brush technique, what I'll do is I'll get rid of some of the excess water, right? And by doing that, now I can come in and kind of work on some of these hairs a little bit more artistically. Remember, the airbrush is not the #1 tool for every job. The airbrush is great, but you want to know the other tools because there are things that the paintbrush is much better at. And if it's much better at, then that's what you want to use for that element of your painting, right? So always remember that. There's always the best tool for the job. There's always the best person for a particular job. And so that's why we're coming in with the, let me make it a bit lighter. There you go, Paola. And let me make sure she's in focus. Okay. I do it in manual focus because this way I'm not having the camera hunt for focus, so that's good. Alright, so again, we're just going to be working on some of these hairs here. Let me get my reference so I can look at those hairs. Remember, you always want to do my 1 second rule, which is paint 1 second, and you have to look for 1 second first. If you're going to paint for 2 seconds, you want to look at where you're painting on your reference. And that's going to keep your head in the game. And that's what we need to do. Always keep our head in the game. And again, you want to build up these hairs with the paintbrush. You don't want to try and go too wet too early. You just want to build it up. And now we can create sort of this beautiful chaos that's in a woman's hair, right? I love the way that the light from the sun reflects off a woman's hair. And also the little errant hairs kind of go this way and that way, like a kind of a dance. And that's the beauty of painting portraits. You really get to look much deeper into things, and I love it. One thing that you want to do, so you see my ink's on the right side, I'm a righty. You don't have my ink on the left, because if I do, I get the ink with the paintbrush and then I come across the painting. Coming across the painting, I could drip. If I'm on the right side, that means that I could come this way and not go across the painting. So if it does drip, it's not going to drip on her face. So Sun Tzu, The Art of War, every battle is won or lost before it's ever fought, and that's exactly the case with portrait painting. So the best defense is not to be there in the first place. So this is a liner brush. It's by Winsor & Newton. It's their Cotman line. And this is the Rigger 333, or the #1 brush. And it's good for oils, it's good for watercolor. I think it's mostly geared for watercolor, but there's really no such thing as an oil or watercolor brush. You just clean it right away and you're going to be just fine. It's not like you have a watercolor brush and you put oils and all of a sudden it deteriorates. That's not the case. So any brush is good for anything. Any medium, that is, if you have a need for it. Mr. Bob, I was just thinking about you. How are you, my friend, all the way from San Francisco? Great to see you. So fantastic. And Ken says he was playing around with his Creo 771 set at 15 psi using India ink, but not my brand of ink. It seemed to help what I was working on. Yeah, you lower that ink, or you lower that psi, and that's really going to help. When you get these inks that are already diluted and calibrated for the job, you're really going to love it. And I love to hear your thoughts, definitely. Michael Johnson says he has the Arches cold pressed 140-pound hot pressed And the Canson XL series watercolor paper. Can you use these? You can, but you're going to have this texture that could get in the way. So the hot press would probably be better. And that's the great thing, Michael. You know, you can explore, you know, you can test. And, you know, that's how I stumbled on the things that I love, is that I did test and said, sometimes I was like, that didn't work. And then there was sometimes I was like, wow, that really worked. So, love to hear what you think. When you're testing, just don't do something so precious like a portrait commission. Uh, just go to town. I'd love to hear your thoughts and how it came out. So, definitely. So you see, I have a lot of beautiful long hair to do here. And remember, pressure is everything, whether you're working in digital art, airbrush, the amount of pressure is going to be how dark it is. Right here we have this long hair here, and then it goes down a little further. We don't have much that we see, but we do have some directional hairs going to and fro here. And you do have the super light hairs, and you see I can just barely touch the surface to get the lightest of hairs. And it's just a lot of fun. There's this one hair that comes down here, and you notice that hairs will be lost and found. It'll disappear and then it'll show up again. Just like so. And so really like the way that is. So also on the outside of her hair, you know, even when her hair is like really combed and sprayed with hairspray, there's always this outer edge as the hairs kind of come across to the against the background. You're going to see that there's going to be some errant hairs here and there. So it's not smooth. That's going to create your realism. So same thing on the other side. We're going to come over here to the other side. And there's going to be some errant hairs here and there. And you want to go ahead and get rid of the excess water, because if it's too wet, you're not going to be able to get this really slight detail. So as you can see, I did hardly any airbrushing in this session because I did, you know, 6 airbrush sessions already. So now is time to work on some other techniques to kind of bring it home. Like I said, the airbrush can't do with ease as what the paintbrush can do. So let's make sure that we indicate that, you know, use those tools, because it's just going to help our thing that we're doing. So now I'm going to zoom in on her eyebrows, and let's see. So, oh, Dwayne's Mr. Bob says it looks great. Thank you, I appreciate that. And oh, so Dwayne has the 771 and he uses it in rotation with my arrow. Thank you, sir. That's great. And let's see, pretty wet in the past week. Yeah, you guys are having that, what do they call that? The something river that's going on, you know, in San Francisco. So are you staying dry, my friend? And hopefully there's no flooding. Bob lives in San Francisco, one of the greatest cities in the world. I did leave my heart in San Francisco, as the song says. Really beautiful city. How can you not fall in love with San Francisco? Am I right? I almost moved there. Oh, let's zoom in so you can see. So now watch what I can do with this paintbrush. Again, I want to make sure I'm not coming across the painting. and just get rid of the excess. And let's do some beautiful eyelashes here. You don't want them equidistant or the same size. You got to keep it organic. The rules of nature are different than the rules of man. We want to make everything orderly, same size and all that fun stuff. But that's not the way nature is. But as you can see with this paintbrush, I can really work on her pupil and put that right next to that highlight, that catch light, and really start doing some really wonderful details. We don't think about those details in the first to 6 weeks. That's 2-hour sessions a week. So this is only something that comes much later. I always say that you don't want to worry about the likeness until the end. And that's the end part right here. I'm going to go ahead and do the crease. And, it's really beautiful. And remember, if you go very lightly, you're going to have a light application. And we can also, since we're here, we can do some more information on her eyebrow here. So we can shape it a little more. Create some contrast in here. Again, you want to go ahead, get some of that ink, but you want to dry it, so we're doing a dry brush technique. If it's too wet, you're not going to have the control, so that's very important to make sure that you kind of get rid of the excess water so you have this control. There's some beautiful errant hairs here in her eyebrow, just like so. These little touches that you see in like Hans Holbein painting of, the court of Henry VIII, 1600s, and these little details that really just make it so special. But that's only able when we do the big things in the first 6 sessions, right? And let's see who we have. Nameless, how you doing? Great to see you. Great information from Dwayne. That's fantastic. And so I'm so glad to see you, Nameless, all the way from Cali. I'm so glad. That is fantastic. I hear great things about the Krios. Everyone loves that airbrush, so very good. I haven't tried it myself, but only heard good things. Black tea, you go ahead and you squeeze a full lemon, put the lemon wedge in, put any sugar that you want. It's just amazing, so highly recommend that. I'm having that now, and even if you're just feeling a bit under the weather, there's something about black and green tea, it's like a tonic, isn't it? So right now I'm just going to come, look at that, we're at 11:13. This live stream is going quick, and you know why it's going quick? Because great people like you guys and girls. It's just so exciting on a Wednesday night, to be able to talk to really fantastic, nice, generous, talented people like yourself, and I just can't imagine not doing it, and thank you for spending your Wednesday night with me. I mean, it's so great. In some parts of the world, it's Thursday, so that's funny. I'm gonna hit some of these eyelashes here. See, the airbrush can't do this as well. You can do it, but it's not going to be as sharp and beautiful as this, in my own findings. So always don't worry about it being a pure airbrush painting. That means nothing. Only means that are important is whether or not you say what you want to say with your portrait. So don't worry if you're using other tools such as pastel, such as Blackbeard wheat, such as the paintbrush, anything that you can do to make your painting better, there's no rule against it. And if there is a rule, it's set by somebody you don't really want to follow their rules anyway. So, this is a liner brush by Winsor & Newton. Great company. It's the Cotman 333 rigger brush, and it's the number 1. So, highly recommend that. You will love it. You will get detail that you never could get before. So, especially if you're doing the Airbrush India ink. And in my online course, I talk about that in depth. So, if you guys will indulge me, I'm just going to just expound a little bit on my online course. So right here, I'm going to pull the online course up, and let's see how this goes. And let's see how I can do this. So I'll just bring this down. Okay, so I'm just going to show my online course and how it works and what you get for it, which is really fantastic. So we go to the web browser here, and let's see if I can get that. Okay, so here it is, and I'm going to add it. Okay, so as you can see here, this is the course. So when you go here, basically talks about what you have. This is the portrait that we're working on. As you can see, it shows that you have the reference and you're working alongside over my shoulder as you're working it. And we do it from step to step. You take the course at your speed. So you can take, 8 hours. You can take, 8 months. It doesn't matter. And it's all in bite-sized chunks. So you're not like, oh my God, I have to finish this painting. You can do part 1, just doing the white mixture, and I go over the importance of it. Part 2 is, working on the neck and using the custom stencils and going to the hair. Anatomical landmarks, avoiding underspray, the mechanical pencil, the aggressive erasers, refining background edges, adding the light mixture to the features to get dark and clarity, fully modeling the forms and finishing up the portrait. These things are really great. It's only $149 one-time payment. That gives you access forever. And you have a username and password, and you could stop and pick up exactly where you left off. So with this, you also, like I said, you get the stencils, you get 2 line drawings in pencil, you get the pastel pencil, the sandpaper, the stump that you see me use tonight, and you also get the full set of the Airbrush India inks. So I really hope that helps. And so that's it. That's all I have to say about that. So thank you so much for indulging me. And Nameless says he's doing good. Just finished the building and painting his Impalma model kit. Oh, that's fantastic. I love to hear that. Oh, Squeeze says amazing eyes on a portrait. Thank you. So I really appreciate that. Wayne says the 771's a good brush. Great. That's fantastic. Yeah, Dwayne does some amazing work, Ken, so he's a good person to get advice from. That's for sure. So what's interesting, you can see that there's a delay. It's probably like a 1-minute delay. So what I'm saying now doesn't happen to you for a minute. It's pretty interesting. Okay, as you can see, I worked on her eyelashes a little bit. Came out really nice. I'm happy. And about the eyebrows, we can actually cut in and do some of the negative spaces. I'll show you how to do that in the closing moments of this portrait demonstration. So you do have this negative space, and just like a tree, if you paint the parts of the tree that are, empty and you can see the sky, it really creates a really beautiful realism and a sense of space. So you see how rather than do individual hairs, I could actually paint the space in between the hairs of the eyebrow by doing that with the kneaded eraser, not the kneaded eraser, but the aggressive eraser. So that worked out really well. Let's go to the other eye and eyebrow and see if we could do some of that there as well. I wouldn't call them tricks, it's just techniques that you learn, and you don't want to do this to the end because during the middle part in the beginning you're figuring out what's the size of this eyebrow, right? So you don't want to get too detailed if you're not sure of the proportions. So that's something that you want to really explore. Explore the larger shapes, and then at the end you can do these fine details and texture. So you can see I'm just going with the eraser, trying to work out some texture of her eyebrow. And from far away it's really going to read as, you know, she has hair on her eyebrow, which I love that. I love real eyebrows on women. It's very cute. I'm a naturalist in that respect. Okay, so we'll come over and we'll work on the texture of this eyebrow here. And once again, the link is in the description for the online course. And also to purchase the airbrushes and all of that, and the inks and any information. If you have any questions, never hesitate to reach out to me. I always answer, sometimes not right away, but I always answer, because it's important that, you know, you stop to talk to me, that I definitely answer you, and if I can help, I will 100%, even more than 100%. So hopefully I can exceed your exceed your expectations of how much I will help you guys. Whether you take my course, my mentorship class or not, I'm still going to help you. Because if I can't inspire, then what's the point of me being an artist, right? If I enjoy it and I love it, what's the point without sharing that love and that inspiration and just a feeling of worth you get from creating something? Don't you get that? When you create, you get that feeling like, wow, I did that. And you can step back and say, wow, that's really something. And I want you to have that as well. So as you can see, the eyes and the eyebrows are really shaping up. Now we can come and kind of clear the field. I like to say plow the field with an aggressive eraser. And we're just going to create some of these light hairs here. So this is how I pretty much end a portrait, you know, just working on the details, kind of getting the subtleties, right? When doing details, I don't go crazy, just a couple. That's the way hair is. It's not like spaghetti. Hair is intermittent. It kind of, you see it, then you don't. And so we did a little bit there. Not too much detail on the hair. Looks really good, but it's distracting from the main focus. And the main focus most of the time in the portrait is, of course, the eyes, the soul of your sitter. And as you can see, just creating that texture with just a few strokes. You're not reinventing it. You're not trying to do every little detail. Less is more. I want you to look at the portraits when you get a chance of Johanna's Vermeer. I want to show you a portrait that I'm working on in oils. Wow, Mr. Bob, thank you for the super chat sticker. That means the world to me. Thank you. I appreciate that so very much, sir. And Bob, it's always a pleasure. Bob is an amazing artist, and he's like a Renaissance guy. He does so many things so well. And so thank you, Bob, and thank you for sharing your talent with me. And he was elected into the Pastel Society of America, the signature membership. Really good. So fellow signature member of the Pastel Society of America. Mr. Dwayne says, Great stuff, Tim. I look forward to my Wednesday night here. Ah, thank you, Dwayne. I appreciate that. I want to show you how this is a copy of an old master painting. And so as you can see, this is an oil paint. And by doing copies of different artists, you really can see what they're doing. And remember what I said, airbrush will help your drawing. The India ink will help your color, whether you're doing it in airbrush or paintbrush. This is done with paintbrush and oils. It's not done yet, as you can see. But underneath here is an airbrush India ink underpainting on wood. And so you can see you can use this skill for so much because the India inks are waterproof. You can erase the pencil lines underneath, and you just have so many options with it. So if you haven't tried my airbrush India inks, I definitely recommend it. You're gonna love them. And thank you once again, Mr. Bob, for the wonderful super chat sticker. I really appreciate it. Wow, wonderful. Thank you, everybody. So we have Bob with the super chat. And of course, we have Mr. Dwayne. Thank you for that. Mr. Braden, all the way from Canada. Thank you. We have Dave Gregory. Thank you so much. That means so much to me. I'm so excited when I get the super chats because it tells me that you guys and girls are enjoying it. So once again, I was showing the girl with the pearl earring because the way that Vermeer works, you can see that although it looks detailed, everything is very simple. Like if we go into the eye, you can see that it's just very simple. He's not putting detail to death. This is a reproduction that I painted, of course, and this is the pearl earring. It's not fully resolved, but it's really only 3 brush strokes. And I want you to take some of that and apply that to your airbrush, right? We don't have to put every little bit of detail. We can go ahead and be a little more selective because our job is to direct the eye, like a director in a movie. We want to direct the eye, so that's very, very important. And so you see I'm working on the hair a little bit. And remember the Blackbeard wheat, how cool that is? And I'll show you again. Blackbeard wheat, you can get that at any Michael's or Hobby Lobby. And you just put that there and you just spray through it. And you're going to get some organic, beautiful hair that you could never paint that way. So we get some real organic, beautiful things. Todd, have a great night. Always a pleasure. Dwayne says he found that there is a time and place for detail. Less is more most times. So true. We sort of, a lot is said in between the lines, in between the lines of a great story. What is left out is often more important of what's put in. Very well said, Mr. Dwayne. Dwayne does some incredible work, and as you can see, as I spray through this, I can kind of twist it and get some really amazing organic shapes. And let's see if I can zoom in and just show you the different shapes that we're able to get that you really couldn't get otherwise. Or if you were to get it, you're going to have a super hard time. So right here, you see where we have a little bit of an inorganic kind of feel. But I can take this and spray through it with the light mixture. And let's see. I can kind of start working in some of the inorganic shapes here. If I lighten it up a little bit. There we go. So you see these inorganic things happening which really help us. And also on the other side we can do that and hopefully illustrate some of the beautiful hairs here. Move this over. Okay. So in between you can see how we get those organic hairs and how that's really important, because we want to use everything at our disposal to do the best work possible. Nameless says he's a sucker for details and tend to kill an image by overdoing it. Here's a bit of advice, my friend. Hold off on the detail until the end, and at the end you can decide whether it needs it, right? So very important to hold off on it. That when you do get to it at the end, you can make those decisions. And as you can see with Paola, we created a portrait that has life and breath. It has some nice detail and some little detail. So as Dwayne said, you have to know when to, you know, be more like a photorealist, but also know when to be like a Vermeer and do a pearl earring and 3 brush strokes. And Squeeze says 34 paintings with monochromatic underpaintings would have done more if you had an airbrush. Oh yes, definitely. And also busy, his 11 children. Yes, Mr. Yes, so Mr. Squeeze is talking about Johannes Vermeer or Jan Vermeer. He only did like 34 paintings that we know of, and I believe 5 of them are in New York City, which I'm very happy about. He did have a lot of kids, and it's really interesting, his life. There was not much known about him. He was forgotten until the 1800s. No one even knew he existed. He was discovered by an art historian, and the rest is history, so to speak. But still not too much known about him. Some really good documentaries. I think it's called, Bob, The Madness of Vermeer. So if you haven't seen that one, just type that into YouTube. There's 4 parts. You'll love it. I love to hear your thoughts if you haven't seen that so far. And Dwayne says he's worked hard over the years to reduce the oversaturation of detail. Right, that is so, yes. I love detail, but we got to know when to scale back, right, Dwayne? We are at 11:32. Thank you for a very smooth, really just worked out well. Thank you, God, for the ability to have the lights and the apartment and the computer. I want to thank him first. Thank you guys for spending Wednesday with me. It means so much. It's wonderful to have friends out there that I can talk to every Wednesday night and also email during the week. So guys, thank you again for the super chats and super stickers. It's so amazing. And I hope you all have the most amazing rest of the week. And I will talk to you soon. And once again, thank you for spending Wednesday night with me. I'm going to go to bed a happy guy. Bye, guys.